Welcome to Gen X March the Spot. This is a video I have been looking forward to for a long time because I have on here the owner and creator and the woman behind a channel that I adore, and that is my so-called Gen X Life with Natalie. And I have here Natalie from my so-called Gen X Life. If you are like me and you are Gen X, that generation born between 1965 to 1980, and you were a child of the 70s, 80s, and 90s, her channel is your destination for nostalgia and for just reminding you of a little bit of happiness in a world going crazy. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Natalie. Natalie, tell all the viewers about yourself and where they can find you, and just whatever you want to tell them.
All right. Well, thanks, Tracy, for having me. I appreciate it. This is the very first time I've ever done anything like this. So I thank you very much for having me on. I'm still very new, but like you said, my name is Natalie. My channel is my so-called Gen X Life. It's about, like you said, growing up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and just it's definitely a nostalgia trip. But I try not to make it too saccharine sweet. I like to have a little scrutiny involved because I know we tend to look back on our childhoods with rose-colored glasses at times. Mm-hmm. So, and I do that a lot with my videos. I'm not going to lie, but I'm trying to build out some content and some stuff where there's a little more scrutiny involved. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I just started my channel less than a year ago and made a couple of videos that have kind of resonated with some people, and my channel's growing pretty quickly, which is awesome. So yeah, just that's what I'm doing. That's how I got started. I just started making videos with my phone, and here I am almost a year later doing pretty well.
Well, your content is awesome, and you've had so much growth, and congratulations. And
thank you.
I know what it's like to fight the YouTube algorithm, so it's you're doing a great job. And
thank you so much.
So everybody, please go over and give her a subscribe. I'll have all her information down below. And if you're like me, if you're allowed to listen to stuff while you work, I put on her videos in the background and I just listen to them. It just makes me smile all day long.
Oh, that's so cool. I love to hear that. I tell you, I had to get away from current pop culture, from current entertainment. I'm so tired of it. It's not entertaining. It's not, I don't look forward to it. I'm a junkie. Like, I'm a TV pop culture junkie.
Me
and have
too.
been my whole life. And I'll binge watch any show, you know, if it's worth my time, I will watch it. And I was getting so tired of current stuff that I was like, you know what? There is a treasure trove of content from 30, 40, 50 years ago that I can revisit, look at it with new eyeballs as an adult, you know, and that's kind of what I've done. And now I haven't watched a current show in probably 2 or 3 years.
No, I don't think I haven't watched a current show in a long time. I think the most current show I've watched in any way, shape, or form, I finished, of course, Game of Thrones. I'm a huge Song of Ice and Fire. I've read the books. I'm House of the Dragon fanatic.
Okay.
But outside of that, I don't really watch any modern shows. I'd rather go back and watch Friends on Max.
Absolutely. I have box sets. I have DVD box sets that I play on a loop in the background. I'll watch I watch Felicity or Dawson's Creek or Friends.
We're rewatching Dawson's Creek right now with my mother-in-law. She's never seen it. I'm like, you're in for a treat.
You're in for a treat. I'm gonna do, when I start my stream, my streaming and stuff, I'm gonna do some watching of Dawson's Creek. I still love me some 𝗙𝗍𝗄𝗧. So, but you know,
love Joshua Jackson.
Love Joshua Jackson. But that's like a total Gen X thing too. That's not a millennial thing. That is a Gen X thing. He's
that is.
He's an Xer like me. He was born the same year I was. So, but
most of the people in that show were. In Dawson's Creek, they're all Gen Xers, even though they played millennials. They were Gen X. Same with Scream, my all-time favorite horror franchise. They were all Gen Xers, but it was technically millennials.
Well, and this is something that I've come across in my channel, is like, how do you define this stuff? Do you define, is it defined by the audience, with the Gen X audience, or the people that were in it, the people that made it? Because a lot of Gen X content, especially from the 80s, was all made by boomers and starred boomers. And then, but stuff that I watched might have had millennials in it later in the 90s and as well. So like, how do you define what's Gen X? You know, like, is it who's watching, who's creating, who's starring?
Yeah,
I don't know. So it's like, I love that stuff. And you also kids tend to watch stuff that's about kids that are older than they are.
Yeah.
So that always makes a difference as well. So yeah, it was a millennial show, like Dawson was a millennial show, but it was all Xers. So anyways, I don't know, tangent on my part, but
same with Party of Five, all Xers playing. Well, there were several generations within that.
There were. But I claim 90s shows. I claim 90s shows for X. I do not let millennials have them.
No,
So.
me either. They're ours. Well, they get mad, and I get so mad now when I see these articles come out and these rags talking about how, Friends didn't have enough diversity and how all this did. I'm just like, first of all, it wasn't even made for you, but I highly encourage you to go back and watch it because you'll probably enjoy it because you obviously haven't watched it because you're just writing about it.
It drives me mad of this whole diversity stuff that's been going on. And
that's how it was in the 90s. There were white shows, black shows, Asian shows, Jewish shows, and everybody watched everything.
Everybody watched everything. And I bring up, when I intentionally play a lot of old footage and a lot of old news footage and commercials and things because I like to show that there was a diverse range of people in these shows and on television our whole lives. And, and this whole lie of, it was all not diverse, it was all ran by white men is just insane. Like the very first video I ever posted on my channel was about the TV show The Incredible Hulk from the 70s, the Bill Bixby show, and it was written by two women in the late 70s, and it was a good show. I love that show.
I watched that one when you talk about She-Hulk. They demolished the character of She-Hulk in this recent. Stupid, just stupid. And I'm just like, give us a real She-Hulk.
Yes,
and I know the original Incredible Hulk was very, very controversial because it changed quite a few things from the comic for the good. I think how David Banner became the Hulk was much better than how Bruce Banner became the Hulk.
Absolutely.
Much more believable because in the comic he saved some random kid from a gamma explosion that he was working on, and I'm like, so you would just jump into the exposed area for some random kid? Even though I'd like to think somebody was that selfless, probably wouldn't happen, but the way he was exposed in the show to me was a lot more believable.
Absolutely. Even Stan Lee, in my video, I show him in there, and he talks about how much better the show was and the idea that Kenneth Johnson had going into that series and how he wanted to shape the Hulk, and along with Bill Bixby. I mean, Bill Bixby was the heart and soul of that show and brought in the humanity and made them small stories. It wasn't about saving the world or, having big enemies, but it was smaller stories about the human experience, the fight within you of the good and the evil sides inside of us and all that kind of a thing. And it was just a great show. And the video, I didn't even talk in that video. I was just clips putting together of kind of the story of the Incredible Hulk. And it's talking to all the writers and the people that were involved, and it was a love letter to the stories and to the characters, and they loved it so much. And it wasn't about, it just, then you get to see the interviews from the people that did She-Hulk and Hulk and Marvel, and it's just so different how they talk about it and how it's just it's just a different thing. It's changed. I get it. It's not the same, but there's a reason why that TV show is so much better than what we get now.
So good, and it's so human, and having a real live Hulk, not a CGI.
Frigno was amazing, and how they went through all that. That's another thing about just the creation of the show is I don't want all this fake CGI. I love the work of the makeup artists and the people that put the Hulk together, and the stunt coordinators and all that stuff. Just the craft of television and the craft of it all. It seems so gone when everything's in front of this screen that they just green screen that they just film in front of, and it's just
humanity in that show. I mean, the pilot episode, he's already grieving the death of his wife.
That pilot is brutal.
And then his lab assistant, who we think is going to be his new love interest, dead. Just dead. And you're like, and as a child, I was like, oh my God.
What? I cannot tell you how that show was so important to me as a kid, and it was one of my favorites. And it spoke to you. It didn't matter that it was a green monster and it was a comic book. It was just, you could relate to the struggles, and you just wanted to watch every week. And it was such a good show.
My favorite episode is one where he stopped. It's the one where he stopped the abusive father from abusing the child. He fought him in the gym. That one. And then another tearjerker was where he had gotten married to the the scientist later on that was trying to help him cure it, and then she died of cancer.
And then she dies.
And
yeah,
it's like, can't we give this man a happy ending?
No, you can't. You can't. And then the series, and then show didn't even get a happy ending, which is so.
No, he fell out of a plane and died.
Yeah, those TV movies, which are available for free right now on YouTube. I know that.
And that's another great thing about her show. It will remind you of things that you haven't watched in years.
Right.
I can't tell you how many things I go over to your channel and see you do a video, and I go look for it, and I either have it on DVD, I have it on VHS, or I can find it somewhere.
That's awesome.
And I'll just sit there with a big old smile on my face watching it.
That's
awesome. Why I love your channel so much.
Cool. I swear, I watched TV for so long. All this stuff has been in my head for so long. It's like I finally have an outlet of being able to get it all out of my brain. I love TV so much. It's ridiculous. It's really kind of sad. So
I grew up on, we were latchkey kids.
We were, absolutely. 80s TV. I mean, there's just something about it. Even the look of it. Like, I sound like such a boomer when I say things like I don't really enjoy HD. I don't like the look of it. I don't like.
Yeah.
I like the look of old TV shows. I like the look
Me
of
too.
old.
It reminds you of how brown the 90s actually were. They were just brown. Everybody had wood paneling and shag carpet and family photos along the wall in every hallway.
The wood paneling somewhere. Yes.
And that's what it looked like. It looked like you could live there.
Absolutely. It was just so much. It's like the personal touches and the humanity has just been kind of taken out of life in a way. It's bizarre, from everything that we watch to just your surroundings to all that stuff, which is, I don't know how that happened and how we can bring it back, but that's why I like to binge 80s TV shows. But yeah, I'm totally into so many 80s shows that it's been so much fun to go back and revisit them and then to share them with people and be like, remember this? Because am I the only person that remembers this? I can't be the only person.
Your show on ABC After School Specials. Oh my God. I remember those, and they would just tug at the heartstrings, but also teach good lessons. But there were so many memeable moments from those shows, like Helen Hunt. Angel Dust and throwing herself out the second one. I do stand-up comedy, and I've often in one of my routines I talk about how I bring that up, and then I talk about how I tried to use that to get out of jury duty. It didn't work.
That's good. There was a lot of stars that were on the ABC After School Specials before they got famous, and
Bayo had to do about 100 of them.
Bayo, and the thing was, he was like a huge star on Happy Days at the time, so I don't know why he was doing all of that, but he was totally in it. And Stone was great. That's on my video. In my video, his it was like our own little Reefer Madness boy. He did not. Him and Pot just did not mix.
No,
unfortunately. Me and Pot do, but him and Pot did not.
One of my favorite after school specials with him, and being a gay Gen Xer, was There's Something About Alex. I don't know if you remember that one, where it's the football Scott Baio, but his best friend's the wide receiver. Scott Baio's the quarterback on the high school football team, and his friend is gay. And he gets outed, and Scott Baio's his only friend, and it's really, for a gay Gen Xer, it was just really touching. So that's one that if you can't remember, look for it.
I will definitely do that. I'm definitely gonna dive in more to on the ABC After School Specials. I got one video that I wrote months ago that I never made about the origin story of how they were created and how they got on TV. It was very interesting, the people that were behind it and why. Because I mean, Gen X was the guinea pigs for television aimed at children, because in the late 60s and early 70s was when they started doing all of the kids programming and trying to figure out what to show kids, and ABC After School Specials were one of the first things that they came up with.
And weekend specials. You also had mentioned that the ones that would come on after cartoons. When those came on, you knew cartoons were over. Saturday.
Exactly.
But they were still good.
Yeah,
they were great.
Good. I loved little stories like that. They're like little mini movies, and it was about issues that kids were important to kids, and it had people our age in it, and they were so great to watch. I raced home for those when I knew those were going to be on. I had to be home from school.
So what's now being we were Gen Xers, we were latchkey kids, we raised ourselves. My parents were divorced. I lived with my mom. Mom worked 2 jobs. So, and my parents were silent generation, so they were a totally different mindset than a lot of the boomer parents that raised
Very
other Gen
different.
Xers.
Right.
I was mixing her fuzzy navels by the time I was, 6 or 7 and delivering them to her every day, every
Were you
evening.
going to the gas station and getting her smokes?
No, she didn't smoke. I
Okay.
did not have to do that, but I would walk to the store and get with a grocery list and get our groceries and walk back with them.
Yep. I love stories like that. And then that's just, it wasn't right, probably not, but man, it's so great that we lived in a trust society like that where we could do those kinds of things and it was okay,
Exactly.
It was just like, but I'm trying to figure out where we stopped doing this with kids and got so
overprotective. It was our generation that became overprotective parents and younger boomers. I mean, younger boomers got really protective with millennials, but then we as a generation, we totally messed up Gen Z. I mean,
and I need to make some videos about this, taking some accountability and responsibility for what we've done to these children, because I'm trying to figure out why we didn't teach all this stuff that we were supposed to teach them. And, it's fun to make fun of kids for not knowing cursive and being able to tell time on a clock, but we probably should have taught them those things.
And it'll probably split. That's what generally happens. I mean, Gen Xers kind of rebelled against the materialism of the boomers. And then, that's the reason they called us X, is because they didn't know what we were going to stand for. That was part of the reason. The other was alphabet, but that's one reason they called us X, because they had no ideas what we were going to stand for. We were kind of nihilistic. We were, introverted, and then we flipped it and became so helicopter parent with ours. I think because maybe we felt we missed out on that.
I guess it's like, because I don't ever want my kid to have to sit around for 2 hours after school by themselves. So I'm going to make sure that they have this activity and they're going to this thing. And I get it. It's like, but it's like, man, I guess we didn't realize how great our childhoods were until it was too late.
Yeah, exactly. And, and also you were interested in what you were saying about the marketing. I think we were the first generation that got hit with so much syndication and so much toy advertisements hidden in cartoons.
Absolutely. And I actually am running a video about this.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to.
No, that's okay. I love it because it's like it makes me, it validates that I'm touching on things that other people think about and talk about. But Star Wars was the first movie marketing situation that was directed at kids, and then it just kind of grew from there. And then they built their whole Saturday morning cartoons on the networks, and they had commercials and products specifically aimed, and then everything started tying in with marketing and movies and cartoons and TV, and we were the guinea pigs for all of that. And I lived with it my entire life. I cannot remember a time when I was not marketed to or targeted with a TV show, a product, a piece of foods, and something,
exactly,
from cereal to cars, it just everything.
It was so unique because we were also like, I remember coming home from school and first thing I would do my homework while watching television. I don't know how beneficial that was, but always. I would do it.
Absolutely.
But I would turn on Superstation WTBS, which was the early forerunner of TNT and all of that from Atlanta, and they would have the old shows from the 60s and 70s in syndication. I would watch Andy Griffith, Carol Burnett, Make Room for Daddy, all the greats. And then eventually I remember it switched to cartoons. And then Masters of the Universe, She-Ra, Transformers, G.I. Joe, GoBots. I think I'm one of the few that remember the GoBots, which
my brother loves GoBots. Yeah,
Kmart Transformers. But all of that was a toy line. Every single one of those shows, toy line.
Everything was all a TV show and a toy line. All of it, and it was everywhere. I mean, I had a sleeping bag with strawberry shortcake. My room was painted was covered in Holly Hobby wallpaper. My, my lunchbox was, I had
herself the elf.
Oh, nice.
That's one a lot of people don't remember, but she was around for a little bit. She was like
She was.
dinosaur.
That was, man, that's a blast from the past. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I had a Little House on the Prairie lunchbox one year,
Oh.
and then because I love Little House, that was my show. And then my brother had a Dukes of Hazzard sleeping bag. Like, just there's so many different products you can remember. And it was from birth, just all of those things. Yeah. And it was multimedia marketing, multi-channel marketing. It was all around us. And the thing is, though, is that I think it helped us develop not a reluctance to it, but a kind of a radar to it, as far as, because I can see through it all now.
I don't think we're as susceptible to that stuff as we're very minimalistic, I think, in a lot of ways.
We can see through your crap now. It's like, oh, come on,
Exactly. Well, funny you should bring up Dukes of Hazzard, because also we had the heyday of the primetime sitcom and the primetime drama. Dukes of Friday nights were The Incredible Hulk, Dukes of Hazzard, Dallas, and then later on Falcon Crest, and I would sit there and watch them all. My mother let me watch Dallas.
I think we all got, that's amazing. Good mom. You were raised right. My mom let me watch, her shows were Moonlighting and Heart to Heart. Those were the two shows that I remember watching. And I'm actually in the middle of a series. You don't remember these TV shows unless you're Gen X. And I'm doing an 80s primetime edition that's going to bring up a lot of the stuff you just mentioned. And then my next episode is going to be up the 70s. This is a good one. Nice. I was surprised how many shows from the 70s that I was like, oh, people are going to love
BJ and the Bear, the Brady Bunch.
BJ and the Bear, Brady Bunch. I feel like Brady Bunch is just iconic. That's not a forgotten one or
no,
one.
No,
I feel like
BJ and the Bear definitely.
Yeah, BJ and the Bear. Let's see if I can think of. Do you remember James at 15? Do you know that? Yes, James at 15's on there. There was Isis. She was a Greek goddess or Egyptian goddess, a superhero.
Yep.
And there was the Hardy Boys.
And Nancy Drew. There was
Nancy Drew. It was a crossover series. So stuff like that. I don't want to give
Parker Stevenson was one of the Hardy Boys, and later married 𝗙𝗏𝗏 because they met on the set of North and South.
Yeah.
Now there's a Gen X connection.
I love it. Your mind works like mine. I love that.
We would have been best friends in high school.
I think so. That's so great. It's like, wow. It's like I sometimes feel like doing videos about crap, just like silly crap like that, just like Gen X gossip from the 70s. Did you know that, Rob Lowe and Melissa Gilbert,
Here's a blast from the past.
Okay.
Electric Woman and Dinah Girl.
Oh my gosh. Electric Woman and Dinah Girl. Man, was that late 70s or early?
That was late 70s. I watched it in syndication. It would come on at like 5 in the morning. I would get up on like Saturday.
Right.
And it would be it and the Return to the Planet of the Apes, the Planet of the Apes cartoon.
Yes.
Those would be the first two things that would run, and then the normal cartoons would start.
Another thing I've noticed when I'm going through all these shows is that, it might have ran for 3 or 4 seasons in the mid 70s, but then it ran in syndication for 5 years, and then it went to here for 5 years. And so people from the 70s, 80s, and 90s might even know the show, because these shows ran all over for decades. Some of them ran for a couple of decades. And so people know it, I
remember watching Doctor Who on PBS.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and now it's such a big phenomenon. I'm like, Doctor Who? Really? That was just kind of for Gen X, we had our fans of it, but really it was kind of one of those PBS shows that we were just sort of watched.
Right.
And
now, people in the UK probably would beg to differ with us, but for Americans, for Americans, it was like, what? But so like when I make general statements on my videos, like you don't remember this unless you're Gen X. Some millennial born in 85 or some boomer born in 60 will be like, I remember these shows. I remember them well. And I'm like, okay, yes, I know. I'm not saying
you were alive and conscious. Yeah.
Yes, I get that you remember the shows. You might even watch an episode or two, but I promise you, the majority of the audience for that show was a Gen Xer.
Exactly.
It's like, it's amazing the things that people want to argue about or feel the need to comment about. I'm like, it's not that big of a deal. It's just a YouTube video title.
And I know you're not a horror fan. We've already discussed that. I'm a huge horror nut.
I know. So. I wanted to talk about Scream though, because that was a big.
Oh, that's iconic, GenX. That's iconic. That was us in the 90s when we were breaking out into our young adulthood.
Yes, to me, it's the like quintessential GenX horror film for me, because you know all the stuff from the 70s and 80s is great stuff that we watched as kids, but Scream was like this just beautiful meta masterpiece of you know the rules of the game, and we figured it out, and we
GenX angst.
Yes, all the
and
angst.
It was just absolutely inundated with GenX. I mean, you had Neve Campbell, you had Courtney Cox is technically a boomer, but she was still
but she's on the cusp. She's on the cusp.
64, yeah. David Arquette,
Jamie Kennedy,
Rose McGowan,
yeah,
and Clive Barker. I mean, as a horror fan, he was. I mean, good God, not Clive Barker. Wes Craven. For some reason, I want to say Clive Barker and Wes Craven.
I understand. It's all
Nightmare
good.
on Elm Street, Last House on the Left. All these horror films that I grew up watching, and then to have him come out with that,
right. And what I loved was, do you remember the marketing behind it and how it all came about in the 90s? Because they had, first of all, it was not, Drew Barrymore was in a spot in her career where she was kind of trying to make a comeback, and she was definitely the most famous person in the cast, but it was not known what her fate was going to be and how they were going to get rid of her. And she was she was the main promotional person of all of the marketing, all of the posters. She was on the front of the movie. And they totally did a misdirect with her for the movie. And they had different movie covers. I worked at Movie Gallery at the time, so I remember when Scream came out on VHS. Isn't that funny?
Oh, I envy you got to work at a video. I worked in a movie theater, but so nice. It's very similar.
Yeah, I worked at Movie Gallery, and then I later worked at Family Video. And so I love telling people what to watch, you know, and, and I'm trying to do that with my channel a little bit. It's like I've turned into a video store manager. All right, guys, this is what you need to watch. I can no longer direct you to the wall over there, but I can tell you where to find it online. But yeah, I mean, I think there was the whole thing behind Scream and how Wes Craven did that, how they marketed it, how it became such a big hit. It's a very interesting story, and the misdirect with Drew Barrymore was always something that stuck out with me.
And then after I delved into reading all about it, she was supposed to be the main character. Everybody assumed she was going to be the main. Dead within 8 minutes.
I think it was her idea for doing, instead of doing the Sydney character, she wanted to be the first girl. Yeah.
And also it saved them money because she only had to be on set, I think, 2 days.
Yeah.
And then Neve Campbell, with Neve Campbell, they were kind of like, okay, well, you're in Party of Five, you'll do.
Right.
I mean, she was already hired to be in the movie, and
right, but they just did some character switching, and I love stories like that. I'm such a nerd for stuff like that, you know, and just how movies and TV shows come about, and you know, maybe someday if I get more abilities with my channel, I can start making videos about things like that, because I would love to. It just takes a lot of work.
Oh, it does. It's a lot. If you work another job or have a family, it's a lot.
It's very difficult.
Scream spawned a whole series of other what I consider iconic GenX horror. I Know What You Did Last Summer. That franchise, very underrated one, The Faculty, that doesn't get a
love
whole lot
The Faculty.
That great.
Had the guy, was that the one with the
Elijah
guy
Wood and Josh Hartnett?
Josh Hartnett, that's it. Yeah.
Jon Stewart.
Yes, that's right. He was a teacher in that, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And then there was
teacher.
There was also the series, the Final Destination series came out.
Yeah, that was really good. And that was originally conceived as an episode of the X-Files, and they just expanded on it and turned it. And X-Files is another one that I love and adore, and I had my mother-in-law rewatch it with me, and she really enjoyed it.
Nice.
But yeah, it was originally supposed to be an episode of the X-Files, and they just expanded on it.
That first one was really good. I don't remember seeing the others, but I remember really enjoying the first one.
The first one was really good.
I liked the conceit of it all. The the ideas behind it was very interesting.
And you had those 90s dramas that we watched, Dawson's Creek, Party of Five. You had their stars going in and doing these movies.
Yes, it was very kind of old studio system-y when they did all that and made those people very, very famous. They're part of the Warner Brothers, so they had them in their movies and had them on their TV shows and back then, and it was very smart. And I just now I love all that kind of stuff. You know, I was, when I said I didn't want to say that I don't like horror. It's just that I'm not a big slasher film kind of a person. I mean, I have respect for the greats, the originals, the Halloweens and the Friday the 13th and all that stuff. But when it comes to like being scared and I definitely prefer more things like thriller and suspense stuff that messes with your mind. Silence of the Lambs, that kind of stuff. Seven, those types of movies. Whew.
Seven messed me up.
Oh, Seven messed me up. So good.
Oh, so good.
So good.
Now I actually enjoyed Manhunter, and when I found out that they were doing, you know, Silence of the Lambs, I'm like, see the rest of that story,
right?
And of course they blew it out of the, you know, it just absolutely blew out of the water. I mean, Jodie Foster, you can't do much better than that.
No, you can't. Then Anthony Hopkins,
and I actually enjoyed Hannibal. It was okay.
It wasn't bad. But
I prefer Manhunter to Red Dragon. I mean, I thought Red Dragon was okay, but I prefer Manhunter.
They all came out at different times with different actors, and it was not in order, and it was a very, you know, I guess that's how it goes. But they all were okay in their own. But I agree that Manhunter is better than the Red Dragon. But yeah, Silence of the Lambs is in a league of its own.
Oh, God. You couldn't do better than that.
No, you really couldn't. You really couldn't. That's a good one. But yeah, so you know, I mean, I don't mind being scared and everything. I'm just not a big on gore and blood, and you know, it has its time and its place. But
absolutely. But sitcoms, I think our generation defines sitcoms. I think
absolutely. I mean,
Cosby Show, and I know he's the big baddie now, but I
hate that.
If you ask, what is your iconic father figure from your childhood shows? I have three answers for you.
Me too.
I have Mr. Brady.
Okay.
I have Cliff Huxtable. And I have Stephen Keaton from Family Ties.
Interesting.
Those are my three.
Those are your three? You want to hear my three?
Yes.
All right. My three were Michael Landon, Paul from Little House on the Prairie, Dr. Huxtable, and then Dr. Jason Seaver from Growing Pains. Loved him.
There's something about, I loved Growing Pains, but the parents in that seemed a little stuck up to me, but I love the show. I mean,
who was stuck up? I
thought the mother.
Oh, the mother. She was. It's a very interesting dynamic, and I wanted to kind of dive into some of that stuff about how TV presented the relationships of parents and on shows when we were growing up, because she was very different. She was, she could be a little rough sometimes.
But I loved her. I mean, I loved the show.
Same with Elise Keaton. You know, she was very strong and stood up for herself. But very different.
My gaydar went off about her even when I was a kid. I mean, I knew I was gay from the time I was early, but my gaydar went off about her. Like, she was in the horror movie Ben.
Called it.
And it went off when I saw Ben, and then and then later on I'm like, I knew.
Called it. That's funny.
But they were great, and that show is always like in my heart because it showed like a cultural shift from the really free love, very liberal 60s and 70s into the conservatism of the 80s. It was literally that personified. That's what those kids were, because you had liberal parents. You had Mallory and Alex were both fairly conservative. And then you had, teeny others, Jennifer.
Little Jennifer, she was young. She didn't have a political stance yet. It was kind of like a reverse of All in the Family with the the cranky conservative father and the liberal kids, and then you had the reverse, and it did show a cultural shift, and that's a show I really would like to go back and watch, because it started when I was really little, when I was like 4 or 5, and so I'm very familiar with the later episodes, but the earlier episodes I'm not as familiar with, but they're just we just lived through the best time. I mean, any night of the week you could find a great sitcom, and there was only 3 channels to choose from. The
major networks, and then later on Fox. Thank God, because you had Married with Children, and your video on television dads.
Yeah.
I watched that twice, and I teared up a couple of times
Oh,
because it really, living in a single parent home, I really missed having a father around.
yeah.
And what you said in that video really touched my heart because it did show how, I don't know if it was Hollywood shaping society or society shaping Hollywood.
Right.
I don't
know which
know.
one it is.
But it showed the decline of a very strong father with like a Mike Brady and a Cliff Huxtable and even a
Andy
Stephen
Griffith,
Keaton,
Andy Taylor.
Andy Griffith,
Yeah.
Andy Taylor,
Yeah.
to fathers being portrayed as buffoons and with, Married with Children and then The Simpsons and Family Guy, to now pretty much no fathers.
Yeah. It's crazy. And I'm glad to hear you say that. I thank you very much for that. I put that one in my members only area because it did get a little political sometimes. And people get a little
response to it in the comments were very, very positive.
Most of it were, and some people started coming in and getting mad at me for it, but it was just like, I don't think it's wrong to point out how the father's role in society has changed over the last 50, 60 years, and how they've been portrayed in media and how that's changed over the last 50, 60 years. I mean, the bumbling dad trope became such a common thing in the 90s and 2000s that it was just expected. And now it's like men in media, I mean, women are great. I love them all. They're fantastic, but they have taken over Hollywood and marketing and advertising industries. And I feel like men are just kind of
left hanging.
Yeah, they've been kind of pushed aside, and if a white guy appears in anything, he's the villain. If he appears at all, and then if a man appears at all, I mean, it's like he's got to be this crying loser. Like, I don't know, it's a weird.
Give me a strong man. I don't care. I don't care what color, what religion. Just give me a strong man.
Give me a strong macho man. And that's what any woman will tell you. Any woman will tell you that. I'm a
lesbian, and I will say, I want to see macho men.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to hear you say that.
I have dated men in my life, and the ones that I was attracted to, they were on the testosterone laden macho side.
Yes,
it's what we grew up with. Magnum PI and Larry and J.R. Ewing and Bobby Ewing.
And that's, I'm telling you, that's the way to go. There's nothing wrong with that. With the beer commercials with the macho guys and the hot girls and it's like
Real Men of Genius is the most wonderful set of ads. Bud Light should never have gotten away from it.
I was actually thinking about doing a video soon about some of my favorite commercials,
the silver bullet ones and the ones with the Clydesdales. Those were awesome.
There were some great beer ads. Real Men of Genius was one of my favorites as well. But man, they had some. Budweiser and Bud Light had some really great ones. My goodness, and Sports Center did too. Like, but yeah, I know it's a conservative thing to say, but I really like gender roles in a lot of ways. And I really like masculine men and feminine women. And I don't think that's a bad thing to say. You don't have to be a masculine man. You don't have to be a girly girl, but it's okay to be. And I like it. And it's nice to look at sometimes.
As a lot of gay youth, we had gender dysphoria to a certain extent. I mean, I dressed like a boy the majority of my life. My nickname in high school was Pat, which would be considered just derogatory because I had short hair, and we all know the character I'm referring to. Because I was kind of androgynous, but that was kind of a GenX staple to be androgynous, and it wasn't cruel. It wasn't cruel. It's just,
not at all. It was
truthful, and But then I became more feminine as I got older, and you know what? It's okay to be a girl and like boy things. It's okay to be a girl and be a boy and like girl things.
Girl things, right? I don't know how this happened. How we got so all these rules for how you had to act or be or shouldn't be, or I don't know. It's just. Things were so much better when we were kids.
I know. We didn't laugh at each other. I mean, we bullied each other, but I think bullies are good in a way. I mean,
I made a video about that.
Made me tougher. The one on the GenX bullies,
80s movie bullies, and how
and looking back on those guys weren't so bad. I mean, Revenge of the Nerds, they were typical jocks.
Absolutely.
And I kind of empathize with Chet from Weird Science. I mean, he was a redneck. He just wanted to go hunting and come home to a quiet house. And there's your brother and his friends destroying the house. They've made a woman. They're pretty much, trafficking her to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And you got my grandparents catatonic in a closet. I'd be upset too. It's like...
Perfectly said. Perfectly said.
I mean, and I've always loved Johnny from Karate Kid.
Oh yes, and that was a great video somebody did a few years ago that I mentioned in my bully video, that Johnny Lawrence was the hero and Danny LaRusso was the villain of the Karate Kid, and it kind of proves that in a lot of ways with Cobra Kai. So
yeah,
but it's like bullies serve a purpose, and having adversaries in your life serve a purpose. A lot of times it can make you stronger, it can make you better, it can have you can acquire skills and work your way through bad situations. And I mean, obviously I'm not advocating for bullies and violence, but
no, but we're not talking about putting your hands on people. There are ways to outsmart them. I mean,
absolutely.
What did they do in all those movies? Even like Michael J. Fox and Teen Wolf. What did they do in all those movies? They outsmarted, outplayed, and they beat them at their own game.
Yep, absolutely. And that's what made it so cool. And that's what I was saying in that video was, I mean, it's okay. You don't have to agree with everyone. Everybody has to be nice to you. Not everyone has to worship the ground you walk on. Like, there are going to be some people that don't like you. Some people are going to give you a hard time, but it's okay. And you can get through life. It just amazes me because now bullying is like this, or anti-bullying is like this $1 billion industry where now everything's bullying. Everything you say, anything that you say to somebody that they don't like or disagree with, it's all bullying now. And it's just like nobody can handle anything. It's like,
I mean, sometimes there is legitimate bullying, but
sure,
sometimes it's okay to tell the truth.
Yeah.
I mean,
a statement of fact, even if it's uncomfortable, is still a statement of fact. It's not bullying.
Right. Like, maybe you should shower after gym. That's not bullying because I can smell your pits. Come on.
Nothing wrong with a little shame sometimes. I think we've got a little out of hand with people being too proud of things they don't need to be proud of. So it's like, calm down. It's okay to shave and shower and
exactly.
Don't have to be that much of a rebel.
No.
Oh goodness. So I wanted to talk about we had in our emails and stuff before we got on here, we had talked a little bit about we're getting close to Halloween and like how that's all different now, kind of going with from the scary movies and stuff and TV shows to just Halloween itself. Were you a big Halloween kid? Did you always trick or treat and dress up and all that stuff?
Often my mother was working at night, but she worked today. She worked for the school system during the day and worked in one of our local factories at night.
Oh wow!
And that's how you can tell you're an '80s kid. There's still actual factories that you can work at. But
haven't moved to China yet, No,
but there was always a friend or a relative that would come pick me up, and take me with my friends. And so I was the queen of the plastic costume. Remember the plastic costumes we used to get that were polyurethane
masks, and
masks. You could barely breathe. The COVID mask was nothing for us. We've been breathing through masks for years.
Oh my gosh! Do you remember do you remember your favorite costume? The year that you dressed up, what was your favorite one?
When I was younger, I was huge in Sesame Street, so I dressed up as Tweety Bird at least 3 times. And Looney Tunes and Sesame Street. So I dressed up as Tweety Bird at least 3 times. Big Bird once and Ernie once.
Oh,
those were my favorite as a younger kid. As an older,
as Ernie.
Yeah,
I thought that was great.
As a plastic mask and all. Older, I kind of got out of the habit of costumes when I was in high school. But my friends and I would just go riding around on Halloween, and yes, we would roll people's yards. I don't know if you ever did that. We didn't do any damage. we didn't do any egging or shaving creaming, but
no toilet paper throw in or anything like that.
Usually a teacher's yard.
It was always a teacher's yard. Sometimes it was the principal. One year we got the principal. I think it was senior year. Yeah, good times. Oh man, that's
But
so
how
funny.
about you? What was your most memorable
Oh,
costume?
my most memorable costume, I dressed up as Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz one year.
Nice.
My mom made me a blue dress like
Hmm.
that she wore in the movie. And then I didn't have this any sparkly red shoes, didn't have any rubies, but she got me a pair of red heels but they were as small as she could find and my feet still weren't big enough for heels.
Hmm.
So she had rubber banded them around my feet so I could walk in them and made them all glittery and sparkly. And with that, I remember I loved being Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz. That was my favorite. But I loved Halloween. There was that neighborhood that you would always go to that you knew was going to have the good candy. Did you have a neighborhood like that?
Yeah, we had more upscale neighborhood, and there was like the neighborhood that my whoever the adult was with us, and adulting was dropping us out on the beginning of a block and telling us to whoa, and I'll meet you at the end of it. That was,
Yes. I'm going to go
but there
smoke a
was always
cigarette, drink my beer.
that one house where they thought the person wasn't clean enough, and they would say, "Now go there, don't be rude, but put that candy separate." Did you ever encounter that?
Yes. Oh my we'll honor them with our presence and trick or treat at their door, but we're gonna go ahead and set their stuff aside.
Yeah. And we went everywhere. I mean, I grew up in Alabama, a very small town, and there was, the neighborhoods were a little bit segregated. You
Yeah.
had the Latinos lived here, the black people lived here, white people lived over here, but we went to all neighborhoods. They just drop us out and we'd walk and we'd meet everybody. That's what I loved about the 80s and 90s. It really was a colorblind generation, at least among the kids.
Yeah, I didn't care. I mean, now
Yeah.
granted, I grew up in a predominantly white small town in the Midwest, but I mean, it wasn't like I didn't go other places, and it's not like I didn't have TV where I watched people from all over the place. It never occurred to me. Just never occurred to me.
Yeah, me either. Me either. They're just people.
Yeah.
People. That's the reason when people compare, Friends and Living Single. I know you've done a video on this.
And that was one of my first videos. Yeah.
I loved both of them.
Yeah.
And I don't care which one came first. They're both good. And I was always hoping for the Friends Living Single crossover.
Absolutely. That would have been amazing.
Yeah.
Them to run into each other in an episode.
It was possible. They were both in New York.
Yeah. But I mean, they were both great shows and they were both had their own things about them that were great. And yeah, I liked them both. It didn't matter that, the color of people, by the time I got to college, I mean, shoot, I lived with people from all over the world, every race, color, and creed. It was just life. I don't know. I didn't realize that it was something that other people cared about so much.
I know.
It's like we're just Americans, right? We're just here in America. Like, isn't that what matters?
Yeah.
I really hope we can get back to that. I really hope.
Too. I think we will eventually.
I think so too. I think we're to the end here of a
nightmare.
A nightmare, I mean, don't get me wrong, these next few months are going to be rough, but no matter which way it goes, but I'm hoping we're getting past
something. Prayer. If you're religious, but say a little prayer.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, Halloween has changed a lot. I mean, we don't get a whole lot of trick-or-treaters here.
No, we don't either.
A lot of it has gone to like community center activities and church activities. I mean, the school would always put on like a harvest festival and we would go to that. Mm-hmm. And then some of the churches did like little Halloween parties, but now it's all like trunk or treat and stuff like that because nobody trusts ananybody anymore. And that's really sad.
Again, the low trust society that we've devolved into. It is sad. It's sad because it was so much fun to decorate your house and go trick or treating and see all the little costumes. Oh, it's so great. Mm-hmm. We have one neighborhood still left in my hometown that's got a big, that's the place where everybody goes, and which is really fun. But it's just the one last neighborhood. It's the same with the Christmas time. Just the lights aren't up anymore, and it's just what happened? What happened to our cultural traditions and our it's just it's the computer, it's the dang internet, technology. It has divided us all.
Oh God.
I don't want to leave my house half the time. It's like, why bother? I can just get it delivered, And it's like, but no, I want to go be part of the world.
And was our generation the generation that they scared to death about like stranger danger, quicksand,
the Bermuda Triangle.
and Bermuda Triangle
and sex, unprotected sex.
Yeah. I remember trope about that.
All of it. Yes.
And Nancy Reagan, just say no to drugs.
Apparently, teen pregnancy was a big deal back when we were growing up. That's not really a thing anymore.
Yeah. And then they started glorifying it on TV with Teen Mom. I'm like, good God.
Yes. And now it's like nobody wants to have a baby. So it's just like it's gone a real big circle here. Not anymore.
And I feel like scoliosis was a big thing for us. Remember that? They used to check you. Yeah, the public health department used to come in once a year and check everybody in like elementary school for scoliosis. You'd have to go up and bend over.
Check. I forgot about that. And then we would. Did you ever have to take fluoride with teeth?
Oh, I hated that. It was nasty.
My parents had me opt out of it, which didn't help me in the long run. I still got to get my teeth replaced here before too long. But yeah, what was with fluoride? Why do we have to drink fluoride?
I know. I'm like, and then they came up with the idea, let's just put it in the water.
Yeah. That's what they did in my town. It's like, let's just pass that step. Let's just go straight to the water. Oh Lord.
And I also feel like in the 90s, our teen-ish movies, what was the obsession with military school? There were so many like teen movies, Taps.
Ties. No, that wasn't military, but it was a private
or
school.
Prep school. School Ties. Toy Soldiers.
And then Dead Poets Society.
Prep school. And Child's Play 3 was set in a military
I forgot about that one. Yep. But yeah, we really like to put boys. I guess that was a way to put the boys together into an army of some kind. I don't know. Yeah. That was the only way to show them working together. Yeah.
Lords of Discipline was another, but that might have been more 80s. But
yeah, I was gonna say I don't remember that one. But yeah, I don't know what the obsession was.
I know.
I mean, I enjoyed it because there were some beautiful casts at the time for a young teenage girl. I was not mad about it.
Yeah. But we were marketed to so much. Movies, boy bands became a thing in the 80s and 90s.
New Kids on the Block. I still want to go see them. They're still touring, and I want to go see them.
I do too. I've tried to get tickets a couple of times when they come close to Nashville where I am, but
yeah.
Them and of course I was a huge NSYNC fan.
Oh, nice. And loved NSYNC and Backstreet when they became. I mean, I liked them ironically. By the time they got famous, I was in my early 20s by then. And, but I still loved the music. Loved it. Absolutely loved that stuff. Still do. I mean, I love 90s music is my favorite. Whether it be 90s R&B, 90s pop, grunge,
country. I grew up on 80s and 90s country.
Yes.
The one-hit wonders from the 90s were the best one-hit wonders of any generation.
You're not wrong. There was some good stuff back then.
That's a good video idea. One-hit wonders.
That's a really good. That's a good point. I get really nervous with doing music because they're the worst with copyrights.
Right.
They're the worst. Movies have been the easiest. TV shows, and then music has been the worst for me. But no, it's not a bad idea. It makes you wonder with all the scandals that go on in Hollywood and the music industry these days. You look back on one-hit wonders and you think maybe they didn't play ball. Maybe they just decided to.
I think that's probably the case. I mean, there's so many, very few actors that have managed to keep themselves clean and not. They haven't did pretty soon not devolve into degeneracy. I mean, I could name a few. I guess Kirstie Alley was one. I know she had her craziness going on. She was one. Yeah, never really gotten any scandals. No. I think Keanu Reeves has been fairly scandal free.
Yeah, he's been pretty blessed. But yeah, I mean, it's like how does somebody have a hit song and then just completely disappear from the landscape? And it's like they did not play ball with the people in charge. It sounds like, which is sad. That's one thing that it's like the fun nostalgia of it all, going back and looking at a bunch of stuff from our childhood is great. But then you start looking into kind of what was going on behind the scenes with a lot of these young actors, a lot of these young performers.
That Nickelodeon documentary that broke my heart.
Yeah, and then what Bill and the truth about Bill Cosby and stuff like that. It's like sometimes it makes it hard to go back and look at this stuff and like. It's like, oh, I love that show, but look who was in it, It's like that.
Well, with the Cosby Show, I just learned to separate art
I have
from
to.
artists. You have to.
You have to
because
with all of it.
𝗚𝗏 didn't do anything wrong.
No.
Malcolm Jamal Warner didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Keisha
And
Knight
those
Pullman
shows,
didn't do anything
and
wrong.
those shows were special for a reason. And I love them for a reason, and I don't want
Mhm.
to lose that. But yeah, sometimes it can get hard to look back at some of these things and look at it and what was going on with those kids at the time, you know.
Did you ever, as a latchkey kid in a in a one parent household, I often like craved that time. I was the only child. I was the only child too, but I often craved that kind of family, like a big family like that. So I would often picture myself with the Huxtables. What if I was their adopted child? What if,
right.
What if what if I was a member of the of the Keaton family?
Absolutely. I loved, I did that with Little House. I did that with Growing Pains. But morally with Growing Pains, I just wanted to be around Mike Seaver because I had a crush on him.
It's Kirk Cameron.
It's Kirk Cameron in the 80s, but yeah, I mean, it's weird how looking back on that stuff now, it's hard to you do have to come to separate it out, and that's what I decided to do for my channel as well, because if I didn't, then I would run into a lot more issues than I'd want to. So whether it be with somebody being an abusive like Cosby, or becoming a religious person like Cameron, or that a lot of people have gone different ways and done things that a lot of people don't agree with one way or the other, and it's like, all right, we're just going to focus on the work from back then and not talk about what's going on now. So that's the only way to do it.
But I feel like as our generation, like when we were kids, I think one reason we're so tough and still a little bit nihilistic is we had so much crap happen during that time period, and no one ever really talked to us about it except television. The Challenger. Well, I actually remember Reagan being shot, but I was really, really young, and I just remember it being on TV. I don't think it really impacted me. Right. But the Challenger certainly did. I was watching it live when it happened, and no one talked to us about it. Nobody at school.
They rolled
Punky
the TV
Brewster
out.
Talked to us about it.
Yeah. Punky definitely talked to us about it. But yeah, they rolled that TV out of class. That was a big one for me because I mean, not to get too much into the Challenger, but just real quick, they had the teacher on there, Kristen McAuliffe, and for a lot of kids around the country, that whole year we had done schoolwork and projects, and it was going to be the culmination of that was McAuliffe was going to do lessons from space when after the launch. And so they had TVs on of that in like every elementary and junior high around the country. And so we all watched it when it happened. And it was like my teacher literally turned the TV off and rolled it out of the room and didn't say a word. It was like,
well, take out your math books. That's kind of the way it was.
Spelling test.
And we're all like,
it's like, wait, I don't remember seeing those clouds of smoke diverging like that into two. That doesn't look right. What went wrong? Spelling test. We're not going to talk about this stuff. No. Oh, man.
And I remember watching the first Gulf War on television when it broke out, the very first one.
That's what made CNN.
They put it on CNN in the library, and if you had a break or the teacher would let you out, people just sitting there watching us go to war.
Just watching us bomb Baghdad. And I remember that too. That's what made CNN. I really want to get into some stuff like that for my channel, because it did. I mean, we sat there and watched it on TV, and they glorified it in a lot of ways. It was definitely promoted.
That's when we had Cheney and the Bushes to promote all that shit.
Yeah, exactly. And now they will not go away.
I know. Sit down and retire. Go away. You have billions.
Yeah, I've thought about this so much. Like the boomers, the silent generation of the boomers have been in charge our entire lives, and they are still in charge. It's like,
Gen X, our generation has been responsible for so much good. Video games exist because of us.
Yeah.
Computer generation exists because of us. I know Bill Gates is a boomer, but still, Gen Xers, Gen X's occupy like so many CEO roles and stuff right now, but
Absolutely.
yet I feel that the boomers and silent generation are still in control.
And still in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Because they're still in charge of the government. There hasn't been a political figure of our age. I can't think of a Gen X politician
that's of any note.
Of any note. I mean, even Vance is a millennial, and so is 𝗟𝗂𝗋𝗄, and so is I guess Gavin Newsom would probably be the only Gen X politician
but he gives me American Psycho vibes.
Yes. Perfect analysis.
I mean,
perfect. You are Patrick Bateman, sir. This is not a good look.
But I really think that our generation slid away from politics.
We did.
Because we didn't have I wanted to be a lawyer and a politician for a long time, but I realized after doing some internships that I can't play this game.
Right. Yeah.
So I backed out.
Yep,
and I think our generation, if you see a politician from our generation in politics that's successful, they're probably a sociopath.
Probably. Probably.
Hence Gavin Newsom and Kamala.
Or they've been groomed. Kamala. They've been groomed into their positions. You know, they've been they were set to rise wherever they are, but for one reason or another. But I hate that politics has infiltrated every part of the world now.
That way.
It shouldn't.
They were supposed to be public servants. That's what our founding fathers envisioned. I mean, they still had jobs and farms, and it was supposed to be a part-time gig for the good of the country.
Absolutely. And there was supposed to be so few laws and so few jobs in the federal government that they didn't have to do all this, but that changed in the early 20th century. But that's why I like having a channel that just leaves all that behind. Yeah, let's just talk about fun stuff that we can all talk about and enjoy.
Well, your channel is awesome, and I could literally talk to you all night, but I don't want to keep you all night.
We're gonna talk again. We're gonna talk again, and do some stuff in the future. I'm just getting started out. I just wanted to do this and talk with you and just kind of get an idea of how this works. I'm probably looking off camera for most of this time because I don't know where I'm looking at yet. I'm still learning, but I just wanted to sit and visit and get to know you a little bit, and we can do more in the future.
All right. Well, it's been awesome. And everyone, please go over and check out her channel, my so-called Gen X life. I will post it all down below, and we'll be back real soon.
Thank you so much.
With another video. Until then, Gen X out.
Bye.
Bye.